Now with Emily Taylor. She's a gun law expert, partner at Walker and Taylor PLLC. Their website is walkertaylorlaw.com, walkertaylorlaw.com. Emily, thanks for joining in.
Thanks for having me.
So 1 in 5 teachers feel that it would be good to have guns in the classroom. Only 1 in 5. That number seems low.
It does seem low, but I do think it's reflective of something else that came out in that same poll, which is that only 5% of teachers, or actually less than 5%, believe to be the most pressing safety issue at schools, which is just reflective of the reality that although these school shootings are horrible, horrible instances, they are extraordinarily rare.
So the rarity of the instances is completely lost on the public because the media blows up every incident into a national firestorm, and that is to serve the purpose of, enacting gun control. I feel like we're being played because kids are not being made safe. The buildings are not being hardened. The only option is not to arm teachers. It's one option, and I believe that teachers who want to be armed should be allowed to, but it's not the only thing we can do to protect kids.
That's absolutely right. And for some reason, and I think the reason is, expediency of passing gun control, but for some reason we refuse to treat this issue like we would any other safety issue. The perfect comparison is fires in schools. Look at what we did to make kids safe from fires. Everything from fire extinguishers to fire drills to designing schools such that ingress and egress in case of fire is expedient to fire retardant materials. And at no point did we blame matches or the fire or throw up our hands and say, what are we going to do? We decided and we studied and we looked at what was going to make kids safe. We implemented every angle that we could, and we refuse as a country to do that for school shootings. Why? Exactly your point. Every school shooting is another shot from the gun control left to try to repeal the Second Amendment.
So this is like an exercise in futility, in my opinion, but that's never stopped activists before. And we've seen some pretty amazing feats of bravery and impossibilities realized in the field of activism on pretty much every front, whether it's medicine or technology. We've seen people take on an insurmountable task, and they just pound away at it like water against a rock, year after year, decade after decade, and at some point they achieve their goal. I feel like the lives of innocent children and teachers and adults who are gunned down at these schools, their lives are being used to achieve the agenda goal of eliminating the Second Amendment. And I feel like that's just so dastardly and evil. It's indescribably foul to use the blood of innocent people to achieve a policy goal like eliminating the Second Amendment. It's just, I can't believe it.
That's absolutely right. And bear in mind, we have had the answer from the FBI since fairly shortly after Columbine. I mean, they started studying these massive quickly and quickly came to the conclusion that armed resistance ends the event quicker than anything else. And that is either because the armed resistance actually shoots and kills the killer, or the killer sees armed resistance, and most often they turn that weapon on themselves because they're seeking out places in which there is little armed resistance so that their body counts are higher. So we know the answer. We have known the answer for years. The answer is more armed resistance, fewer soft targets, and you're absolutely right. We refuse to implement it for, I think, the nastiest political reasons.
Nasty, dastardly, completely evil, but that's never stopped people from doing what they want. So now let's go a little bit further into this, because the interesting facts surrounding teachers being willing, like, so I said it was low, that 1 in 5 teachers feel like guns in the classroom could be a good thing, but that number is actually up. So What is the status of teachers being allowed to carry a gun in school across the country?
Well, it is actually banned in fewer states than it is allowable, but allowable is not the same thing as barrier-free, and certainly not the same thing as required. So we, I think, tend to trend in the right direction here. We've, of course, got our grab bag of states that says you cannot have armed teachers. We've got more states that say, essentially it's up to the schools or it's up to the teachers. Virtually every state that allows it requires some sort of training. As to that 1 in 5 figure, if I really had to take a guess, my guess would be that's about the same percentage of teachers who would consider themselves or identify as gun owners themselves, and perhaps are thinking, I myself, Mrs. Jones, who teaches kindergarten in, rural Texas, I myself am not comfortable carrying a firearm into my classroom, which is completely fine. I don't think there's any state legislature out there who would consider forcing teachers who were uncomfortable to carry a firearm. But certainly we have so many who are well-trained, who would take advantage of that option, who know how to not be disarmed by, students or by an active shooter, and should have that available to them. I do think that, I would very much hope that the more we convert people to gun owners, we'll see that number rise in what teachers believe they should be able to do.
Yeah, I agree. I think the number would go up a lot if it were promoted and presented in a way that teachers could see themselves actually doing it. But that's going to take time. I actually feel like our big push as gun owners, as conservatives, as people who believe in protecting innocence is to make the options more palatable in areas where the policy is already there and work to enact the policy that frees teachers up to participate if they want to in the states where it's not currently the law.
Absolutely. And, again, I think that the best thing any of us can do for the Second Amendment, calling your lawmakers and getting involved on that level is absolutely wonderful if you have the time and inclination. But the best, easiest thing you can do sometimes is turn to that neighbor or turn to that friend. Ask if they're a gun owner. If not, ask why not. Take them to the range. Get them familiar, because once people are introduced to firearms, the scary factor goes away and they get it and they understand. And so as responsible gun owners, teaching others to do the same and to embrace the Second Amendment is the best action we can take. And boy, it is so easy to do.
It is. It's actually easy to do. It's something that every one of us can participate in. And we're talking about voluntary, right? So this is not a situation, Emily, where you or I or anyone who advocates for the Second Amendment or believes in it thinks that people who don't want to do it should do it. It's actually the opposite. If you want to, you should participate. But if you have no desire to do so, it's not something for you. It's really, you just move on to the next good idea about hardening schools, hardening buildings, training teachers, situational awareness. There's so much to get into. You can choose another avenue with which to contribute to helping keep kids safe.
Absolutely. And those who are unwilling to undertake it responsibly should not be encouraged to undertake it, because that's our other duty as the Second Amendment population, is not just to spread the good word, but to be the best representative for the gun owning population to demonstrate to others. And that includes consistent training, rigid safety standards, and ensuring that you are the model gun owner to everyone who you meet.
I love it. That's important. It's more than just talk. It's actually something that could save your life in the long run. And there's so many great people out there doing good work, such as yourself, to make sure that people are informed. So is there anything else that you feel like is really important for us to know and understand about this issue, especially because it has to do with our most precious resource, our kids, coupled up with, the teachers who are valuable as well. We don't want any more loss of life.
I would say the best thing is to take a breath and remember that, literal billions of children every year go home and come home from school safely. These instances are tragic. We need to fix the problem. We need to be well prepared. We need to harden these soft targets. However, I have babies too. Remember that it is not what the media makes it seem. Take a breath. Know that the chances that your child is ever involved in a mass shooting incident at school, it is almost a non-statistical probability. So keep that in mind. It doesn't mean we don't act and we don't fix the problem, but to all the parents out there who I know are concerned, just bear in mind that it is so incredibly unlikely. Your babies are, in all probabilities, very, very safe.
Yep. And on the flip side of that, the best thing to do is to work as hard as you can to harden your kids' schools and begin the conversation with their teachers about arming teachers, about having an armed school resource officer, and about people abiding by the safety protocols that have been put in place already, which in some of these school shooting instances had people simply abided by the safety protocols of not propping open doors. The shooters couldn't have done what was done. So all of these are important aspects.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Emily Taylor, you're a partner at Walker Taylor Law, gun law expert, and so glad to have you here tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.